A cruel cop patrols the streets like he owns them. On this night, he unleashes a violent act against a helpless man in front of silent bystanders. But the calmness of the man he kicks offends him even more. That night ends with a line that will haunt the officer forever. You people don't belong on this side of the city. Get your filthy self off our streets. The words shot out like a bullet, echoing through the empty street as a leather boot followed smashing into the side of a man already curled up beside a rusted shopping cart. Downtown Westbridge was quiet that night, but it watched the way it always did. Streetlights buzzed and flickered above, casting long shadows over boarded-up buildings and cracked sidewalks. A corner gas station clerk paused his sweeping, lips parting in silent shock. A couple across the street, walking their dog, froze mid-step. No one moved. Officer Braxton Coltall, muscled, gleaming white badge against his dark navy chest, stood above the man like a hunter admiring his downed prey. His jaw clenched, his skin pale, polished, and pulsing with pride. He adjusted his belt as if his act had somehow added to his authority. I said move. Braxton snarled again, kicking the man's blanket aside. The man didn't flinch. He was black, bearded, old, maybe 70. His coat was torn at the shoulder, his boots worn down to paper-thin soles. He hadn't spoken once, only looked up now, slowly, with the kind of stillness that doesn't come from fear, but memory. Braxton hated that stare. It wasn't defiant. It wasn't weak. It was worse, it was calm. You deaf or just dumb? Braxton growled, reaching down, grabbing the old man's collar and yanking him halfway off the ground. Don't test me, old man. This ain't your city. Still, the man didn't speak, just gazed past him, past the badge, past the gun, and then a hand raised not to fight, but to gently brush something from Braxton's shoulder, a single autumn leaf, golden red. The officer slapped the hand away. That was when the clerk across the street dropped his broom. It clattered loudly on the concrete, a sound that should have meant nothing. But in that silence, it echoed like thunder. The cop turned, glaring, then back at the old man. Something about the moment had shifted. A ripple in the calm. You wanna be cute? Braxton hissed. He reached into his vest for his radio, ready to call backup, ready to drag this man somewhere he wouldn't be seen. But the man finally spoke, voice soft, dusty, clear. Be careful who you put your foot on, son. It might be the only thing keeping your city standing. Braxton blinked. What did you just say? The old man only returned to his blanket, turning his back not from fear, from pity. That was the last straw. Braxton moved forward again, hand tightening on his baton, when a siren chirped behind him. Not a police siren. A black SUV, government plates pulled up quietly at the curb. The door opened. Braxton squinted into the headlights, shielding his eyes, annoyed. You can't just park, Officer Cole. A woman's voice, sharp, commanding, dressed in a tailored grey coat, heels clicking as she stepped forward. A name badge gleamed, Deputy Mayor Chambers. She walked past Braxton, didn't even look at him, and knelt before the homeless man. Her voice softened. Dad, are you all right? The world stopped moving. Braxton's mouth dropped. She turned slowly, fury in her eyes. What exactly did you just do? Braxton's throat went dry. The sound of Dad hit harder than any siren ever could. He blinked at the old man again, this time with different eyes, not those of a predator, but a confused child looking at something too large to understand. Deputy Mayor Chambers was still kneeling, gently lifting her father's frail shoulders, brushing dirt from his sleeves. Did he hurt you? She asked softly. The old man gave a subtle nod, not for pain, but acknowledgement. He kicked me. She stood slowly, her breath misted in the cool air. Her eyes didn't burn, they froze. Officer Cole, she said, her tone now official, do you know who this man is? He didn't answer, not out of defiance, but out of fear that the wrong answer might cost him everything. Chambers took a small step forward. His name is Abraham Hall, retired educator, founder of Westbridge's first civil services youth initiative, lifelong community volunteer. She paused. And yes, my father, he's chosen to live simply, but he is no less a citizen than any of us. The gas station clerk across the street pulled out his phone. The couple walking their dog had already begun recording. A quiet war was beginning, not with gunfire or raised voices, but with shame, exposure, and a camera lens. Braxton's fingers twitched near his baton, then dropped. His instincts screamed to assert dominance, but something deeper warned him. Not this time. Ma'am, with all due respect, he finally said, stiff, he was obstructing public space. I had no way of knowing, no way of knowing. What? She snapped. That he was human? Braxton shifted. His boots suddenly felt heavier. There was no ID, no indication of who he. You didn't ask, she interrupted. You kicked first. You talked down to him. You dismissed him. I followed protocol, Braxton insisted, but his voice cracked. Chambers turned away, pulling out her phone. We'll see what Internal Affairs has to say. At that, Braxton stepped forward, not threatening, but desperate. Wait, you're not serious. This is a misunderstanding. You know how it is out here. People pretend to be something. They're not all the time. How was I supposed to? You mean black men pretend to be human? His mouth snapped shut. The SUV door opened again. Another figure stepped out, a tall, older man in a beige coat. No badge, no fanfare, just presence. Mayor Elijah Chambers. Braxton froze. His skin went cold. The mayor walked straight past his daughter and knelt beside the old man. Brother Abe, he said gently, I'm sorry I didn't visit sooner. Abraham. Hall nodded. Didn't want no favors, just peace. You deserve more than that, Elijah replied. You built this city's conscience. They hugged, quiet, dignified. Then the mayor stood and faced Braxton. Your body cam's on, officer? He asked simply. Braxton hesitated. Yes, sir. Good, the mayor said. Because if I ever hear of anything like this happening again, on my streets, not just to my friend, but to anyone, you won't just lose your badge. Braxton looked down. The mayor walked past him. No threats, no shouting, just authority carried in silence. Chambers followed him to the car, supporting her father on one side. The old man paused as he was helped in. He glanced back. Their eyes met, and for the first time in his career, Braxton felt what it was like to be seen, not as a cop, not as powerful, but as small. Braxton slammed the locker shut so hard the echo snapped across the concrete like a gunshot. The other officers in the room looked up. Some quickly looked back down. Others watched longer, whispering behind eyes that didn't bother hiding their judgment anymore. He peeled off his vest with jerky hands. Sweat clung to his back, though the air in the precinct was ice cold. Bad night? Asked Officer Wade, sitting on the bench with a sandwich half eaten in his hand. Mind your business, Braxton muttered. Wade shrugged. Sure, but you might want to check Channel 6. You're trending. Braxton turned sharply. What did you say? Wade held up his phone. A paused video filled the screen, a still image of Braxton mid-kick, leg extended, expression twisted. The title below read, Westbridge Officer Kicks Elderly Homeless Man, Shocking Truth About Victim Revealed. Braxton snatched the phone and threw it against the locker wall. The crack of glass silenced the room. For a long second, no one spoke, then a female voice called out from the hallway. Officer Cole, Internal Affairs wants you in conference room B. Now, his blood turned to ice. Braxton walked down the hallway like a man being marched toward his own funeral. The precinct's fluorescent lights hummed, but somehow the silence was louder. Every footstep felt like judgment. Every glance stung. When he entered conference room B, two men were already waiting, plain suits. No smiles. Have a seat, one said. He obeyed. Do you know why you're here? He nodded stiffly. The incident on Westbridge Avenue. Let's start with that word. Incident. They hit play. The footage was crystal clear. Braxton's voice filled the room. You people don't belong on this side of the city. Then the kick, then the stillness, then the man's haunting response. Be careful who you put your foot on, son. It might be the only thing keeping your city standing. The room was dead silent. Braxton cleared his throat. Look, I didn't know who he was. He looked like a regular vagrant. Refused to move. One of the investigators leaned in, and that's enough to kick him. Braxton's jaw tightened. I was following standard procedures. No, you weren't, the second agent said flatly. You didn't ID him. You didn't radio for support. You didn't ask a single question before engaging with force. Braxton shifted in his seat. It wasn't excessive force. The agent leaned back and crossed his arms. Mr. Hall is 71 years old. He's frail. And he's the mayor's lifelong friend. The city's already preparing a press statement. Do you understand the magnitude of what you've done? Braxton felt a pulse at the side of his head. Here's what's going to happen, the agent continued. Effective immediately, you're suspended pending a formal inquiry. You're to surrender your badge, your weapon, and your precinct access until this is resolved. The words hit like punches. Braxton stared down at the table. His badge gleamed under the overhead light. It had once made him feel invincible. Now it just felt heavy. He reached up and did the clasp and placed it on the table. Silence. Then he removed his sidearm, slow and careful, and laid it next to the badge. One of the agents picked them up and slid them into an evidence envelope. You'll be contacted for your hearing date. Until then, avoid public statements. The media's already circling. Braxton stood. His knees felt weak, but his pride forced him to hide it. As he stepped into the hallway again, everything felt different. The uniform, once armor, now felt like a lie. Every pair of eyes he passed seemed to know. His fall had begun, and for the first time, Braxton Cole wondered if there would be anyone left to catch him. The apartment was too quiet. Braxton sat in the dark, a half-finished drink sweating on the coffee table, news flickering on the screen like static ghosts. His uniform hung limply on a chair, lifeless. His phone buzzed again, fifth call in an hour. He didn't answer. On the screen, a local anchor spoke with urgency. This latest scandal involving Officer Braxton Cole has prompted the mayor's office to launch a full departmental audit. Community leaders are demanding transparency with many alleging a pattern of abuse. Braxton muted the TV and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The shadows up there looked like bars. He hadn't left his apartment in 2 days. The knocks came at 11:07 p.m. sharp and deliberate. He opened the door slowly. "Evening," said the woman on the other side, flashing a press badge. "I'm Simone Rourke, independent journalist. Mind if I ask you a few questions?" Braxton started to close the door. She blocked it gently with her hand. "Not about this case. About all the others." That froze him. Simone pulled out a manila folder and flipped it open. 1 year ago, Marcus Wells, age 19, stopped for a cracked taillight. Walked away with a broken wrist and no charges filed. Braxton's mouth tightened. 3 years ago, James Milton, unarmed, pepper sprayed in front of his 7-year-old daughter. Again, no charges, no report. She flipped again. 5 years ago, Arturo Reyes, homeless, kicked under the Jefferson Bridge. Same boot print pattern. You don't remember him, but I think he remembers you. "Get off my property," Braxton growled. "I'm not here to ruin you, Officer Cole," she said quietly. "You've already done that yourself. I'm here because I think this story's bigger than one bad night." He tried to shut the door again, but this time she didn't resist. Before she turned to leave, she added softly, "You've been protected for years, but not anymore. The system that shielded you is now trying to save itself by cutting you loose." The door clicked shut behind her. Braxton turned and punched the wall so hard the frame rattled. Blood welled at his knuckles. He didn't know what stung worse, the journalist's words, or the fact that she was right. The calls weren't just from reporters now. They were from lawyers, from watchdog groups, from families he'd forgotten, names he'd never expected to hear again, and worse, the precinct had gone silent. His so-called brothers in blue, not a single one had called. He turned back to the news, unmuting the TV. Mayor Elijah Chambers has vowed a full investigation. A city audit will review all use of force complaints filed in the last 10 years. 10 years, that was his entire career. Braxton's breath came short. He reached for the drink again, but his hand shook too hard to hold the glass. For the first time in his life, Officer Braxton Cole realized something terrifying. He was no longer the one writing the report. He was the report. It was raining. Not the soft kind, the kind that hit windows like tiny fists, furious and constant. Braxton sat alone in his kitchen, the table bare except for a bottle and a badgeless ID holder. The apartment smelled like regret and coffee gone cold. Then came a knock, 3 taps. Not forceful, familiar. Braxton opened the door and froze. Standing there, hoodie soaked, was a man he hadn't seen in 5 years. "Hey, big bro." Jordan. His younger brother looked older, tired around the eyes, with a beard that hadn't been there before and shoulders that looked like they'd been carrying weight nobody helped lift. "What the hell are you doing here?" Braxton asked. Flatly. Jordan gave a dry laugh. "Didn't know that was still your voice. Sounded different on the news." Braxton started to close the door. Jordan caught it with one hand. "Just hear me out, then I'll go." Braxton stepped aside without a word. Jordan entered, dripping onto the wood floor. He glanced around the apartment, sparse, cold, everything in its place, just like Braxton always kept it. "You haven't changed much," Jordan said, sitting down uninvited. "Same walls, same silence." Braxton stood across from him, arms crossed. "You here to judge me like the rest of the world?" "I'm not here to judge," Jordan said. "I'm here to remember." Braxton narrowed his eyes. Jordan leaned forward. Remember Dad's workshop? How he used to say, you can't build something strong if the frame's crooked. Braxton flinched. Jordan's voice softened. You were 12 when the cops came through our neighborhood and slammed him to the ground for yelling too loud during a traffic stop. You cried for 3 nights. Don't, Braxton snapped. Don't bring that up. You wanted to be a cop to fix it. I remember. Braxton's jaw clenched. And you wanted to run the streets. Jordan nodded. I did. I made mistakes. Sold weed. Got locked up. But I learned something behind those bars. He looked straight at his brother. You didn't join the system to change it. You let it change you. Braxton looked away. Jordan's voice dropped. What happened to you, man? You used to say you'd never become one of them. That you'd protect people like Dad. Like Mr. Hall. Now look, you think I meant for this to happen? Braxton growled, his voice finally cracking. You think I wanted to end up like this? The whole damn city hates me. They want to bury me like I'm trash. Jordan stood. Then stop acting like you are. The silence between them burned. Do you know why I came here? Jordan asked finally. Because you wanted to rub it in? No, Jordan reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded envelope. Because Abraham Hall once gave me a second chance. Helped me get my GED when nobody else would. Paid for my books. Told me my past didn't define me. He set the envelope down. It's from him. He asked me to give it to you. Said you wouldn't. Listen, if it came from him directly. Braxton stared at it like it was a live wire. He forgives you, Jordan said. Even if nobody else does. Braxton didn't touch the envelope. Jordan moved to the door. Whether you opened that or not, that's your call. But if you want to become the man you swore you'd be, not the one in that body cam footage, then it starts now. The door closed softly behind him. Braxton stood in the middle of his apartment, shaking, staring at the letter. A man he'd kicked, a man the city praised, had chosen to forgive him, and for the first time since that night, Braxton's chest cracked open. Not from fear, from something far more painful, shame. The envelope sat untouched for hours. Braxton circled the apartment like a man pacing the edge of a cliff. At 2:17 a.m., with only streetlight bleeding through the blinds, he finally opened it. The handwriting was strong, clear, and every word hit like truth sharpened into blade. Braxton, you don't know me, but I've seen you. I've seen men like you my whole life, walking taller than they've earned, wearing uniforms heavier than their hearts can carry. You weren't the first to put your boot on me, but you may be the last I ever forgive. Why? Because hate is a sickness, but so is silence. And you've been living with both. You want to be a man again? Come see me. No press, no badges, no apologies, just honesty. Community Center on 12th and Jackson. Tuesday, noon. Don't be late. Abe Hall. Braxton didn't sleep. Tuesday came fast. And at 11:58 a.m., he stood in front of the modest brick building with no sign, just a rusted bell and a mural of children holding hands. He looked out of place, not in uniform, just jeans and a black coat, unarmed, exposed. Inside, kids played. Down one hall, somewhere, someone was painting signs for a food drive. At the end of a quiet corridor said Abraham Hall. He was seated behind a folding table, sipping coffee from a paper cup. His coat was patched, his beard trimmed. Calm. Braxton stepped forward. Hall didn't move. I got your letter, Braxton said stiffly. I know. You're not gonna hit me. Press charges? Abraham chuckled softly. If I had to hit every man who disrespected me, I'd never rest. Braxton shifted uncomfortably. Why did you write that letter? Because you needed it, Hall said. And because your brother asked me to. That caught Braxton off guard. He told me what you used to say when you were a kid. Hall continued. I'm gonna be a cop so nobody like that ever hurts my dad again. He sipped his coffee. I liked that kid. Braxton looked down. I don't think I'm him anymore. Maybe not, but you could be. A pause. Then, I'm not asking you to beg, son. I'm asking you to build. Build what? Braxton asked. Abraham set the coffee down. Redemption. He slid a folder across the table. This community center needs volunteers. Real work, food banks, youth counseling, de-escalation, training. You want the city to believe you've changed? Don't tweet it. Prove it. Braxton didn't touch the folder. You're asking me to be a charity case? He said defensively. I'm asking you to be a man again, Hall replied. The kind who earns back trust instead of demanding it. The words stung. Not because they were cruel, but because they were true. I don't know if I can, Braxton admitted. Hall looked him straight in the eyes. Then learn. The door behind them creaked. A group of teens entered, mostly black, some brown, all wide-eyed. One of them looked at Braxton and whispered something. Another one pointed. Abraham stood. "They know who you are," he said, softly. "The question is, what do you want them to know next?" Braxton stared at the kids. He didn't have the answer. Not yet, but for the first time since it all began, he took the folder in his hands and didn't let go. The next morning, Braxton stood in front of a wall of boxes, canned food, diapers, cleaning supplies. His hands were blistered within an hour. He hadn't worked like this in years. Not since his academy days, and even then, it had been a means to power. But this was different. There were no ranks, no weapons. Just sweat, labor, and silent eyes watching him move. The community center buzzed quietly around him. A group of women organized donation bins in the next room. A few teens played basketball in the back court. Braxton was invisible to most. And when he was noticed, it wasn't with praise. It was suspicion. "You think one weekend of stacking cans makes you human again?" Someone muttered as they passed. He didn't answer. At noon, Abraham passed him a water bottle without a word. Braxton nodded, taking it with shaking hands. "Keep going," Abraham said simply. That was their rhythm now. No long talks, no lectures. Just tasks, actions, sweat instead of speeches. But later that afternoon, as Braxton was unloading crates behind the center, a voice cut through the silence. "You're the one who kicked him, right?" He turned. A boy maybe 15 stood a few feet away, arms crossed, chin lifted in defiance. "Yeah," the boy said. "Thought so. They said you were helping now. Like that changes anything." Braxton wiped his hands on his jeans. "I didn't come here to be a hero." "You're not," the kid shot back. "You're a warning." Braxton almost replied instinctively, defensively, but stopped himself. "What's your name?" he asked instead. "Darius. You volunteer here?" "Used to," Darius muttered, "until my cousin got arrested over a vape pen and I said something about it. Then I got labeled a problem." Braxton nodded slowly. "You're not a problem. You're a mirror." Darius blinked. "What? I used to think I was the solution," Braxton said quietly. "Turns out I was just the reflection of a broken system." "You're the kind of voice I should have listened to years ago." Darius looked confused, angry, but curious. "You really mean that?" he asked. Braxton didn't flinch. "Yeah, and I'm not here to convince you to forgive me. I'm here because Mr. Hall believes I can be more than what I've been, and I'm starting to believe him." A long silence passed, then Darius shrugged. "Whatever. You want to prove something?" "Court needs repainting." He turned and walked off. Braxton followed. An hour later, they were side by side with rollers, brushing new life over old concrete. Not talking, just working. The sun started to dip, and for the first time in days, Braxton felt something crack through the grey. Not redemption, not yet, but a beginning. Later that evening, as the kids filed out and the center quieted, Abraham approached him. "You spoke to Darius?" he asked. Braxton nodded. "I listened." Abraham gave a rare smile. "Good. Most folks in power forget how." They walked together in silence toward the door. Before they parted, Abraham said, "You want to be seen differently? Don't demand it. Earn it. With time. With truth." Braxton nodded again, and this time, he meant it. The call came on a Thursday morning. Braxton had just finished unloading bread from a food delivery truck when Abraham handed him the phone. "It's the mayor's office," he said. "They want you to speak." Braxton stared at the phone like it was a bomb. Abraham met his eyes. "It's your choice. But remember, this city saw your worst. Maybe now they should see your honesty." He took the call. The press conference was set for Friday noon. City Hall steps. By the time Braxton arrived, the plaza was already packed. Reporters lined the sidewalk. Cameramen adjusted their angles. Protest signs waved in the breeze, some calling for justice, some calling for his resignation, some just calling him what he'd feared for weeks, face of a broken badge. Mayor Elijah Chambers stood at the podium first, flanked by council members, police brass, and community leaders. Braxton stood in the wings, out of uniform, in a grey button-up and no badge. "This is not about protecting power," the mayor said clearly. "This is about confronting pain." Officer Braxton Cole failed not just as a civil servant, but as a man. And today, he has chosen to speak not as a defender, but as a listener. Then a nod. It was Braxton's turn. The walk to the podium felt endless. The air was sharp, the stairs sharper. He looked out at the crowd. No script, no statement, just Silence until he spoke. I'm not here to clean my name, Braxton said. I'm here because I stained it. Gasps. Cameras clicked. The silence tightened. I kicked a man who did nothing but sit quietly on a sidewalk. I treated him like less than human, not because of what he did, but because of what I assumed he was. He scanned the crowd. I didn't know he was the mayor's friend. But that doesn't matter, because if he'd been no one, he still didn't deserve what I did. A few murmurs. A flicker of respect from someone in the front row. I became the kind of officer I used to fear as a kid. And the system let me, protected me, rewarded me for silence and power. I'm not proud of that. I'm ashamed. More flashes. Some heads nodded. Some didn't. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking this city to hold every cop, every person in power to a higher standard. Including me. Especially me. He paused, looked directly into the camera lens. I'm not done facing the consequences. And I won't hide from what comes next. He stepped away. Abraham Hall stood beside the mayor, arms folded, watching Dr. S. Braxton past him. Abraham said only one word, better. The reporters shouted questions. Are you resigning permanently? Will you face legal charges? Is this a PR move? Braxton didn't answer. He just kept walking, down the stairs, past the crowds, through the noise. That night, the video spread. Some people called it performative, some called it brave, but most simply called it necessary. Back at the community center, Darius showed him the comment section under the press video. One read, I still don't trust him, but at least he's not hiding. Another, words don't fix everything, but they're a start. Braxton didn't smile, but he slept that night for the first time in weeks, not in peace, but in truth. Sunday afternoon was quiet at the community center. The basketballs were deflated, the walls freshly painted, the food pantry shelves finally full. Braxton mopped the gym floor alone, lost in rhythm until Abraham Hall's cane tapped gently against the doorway. You got a minute? He asked. Braxton wiped sweat from his brow and nodded. Always. They sat at a folding table again. No coffee, just quiet. Abraham placed a file on the table. Plain manila. No labels. Braxton eyed it. More volunteer paperwork? No, Abraham said. Something older and heavier. He pushed it toward him. Braxton opened the folder. The first page stopped him cold. DNA test results, paternal link confirmed underneath. Subject are Abraham Hall. Subject be Braxton Cole. His hand trembled. What is this? Braxton whispered. Abraham's voice was steady. Your mother and I were close long before she married the man you called your father. She never told me. I didn't find out until I really saw you that night on the street. The anger, the pain, the way you flinched when I didn't. Braxton's heart pounded. This isn't possible. It is, Abraham said softly, and it explains a lot. Silence fell over them like a curtain. Braxton stood up, pacing. Why are you telling me this now? Because I don't want to die with another secret, Abraham replied, and because I needed you to see me not as a victim or a symbol, but as your father. Braxton stared at him, his face pale. I kicked you. My own, yes, Abraham said, but I forgave you before I even knew. Because pain doesn't have to become legacy. Braxton sat back down hard. I've hated my father my whole life, he said quietly. And he wasn't even my father. Abraham looked at him with heavy eyes. You became the man you feared. To escape the boy who was abandoned. Tears welled fast, hot, shameful. Braxton turned away, but Abraham touched his shoulder. You still have time, Brax, not just to change, to build something new. He opened the folder further. Inside were clippings, letters, a black and white photo of a younger Abraham beside a smiling woman holding a baby. Braxton's eyes. I don't need you to call me Dad, Abraham said. Braxton choked out a laugh. Good, that would be too weird, but I want you to know, Abraham continued, that even when I didn't know, I was already fighting for you. They sat in silence, not awkward, not broken, just unfinished. Outside, the kids returned bouncing balls, shouting across the court. Darius waved through the glass. Braxton folded the file and held it against his chest. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel like a lost man trying to control the world. He felt like a son given the gift of starting over. The marble steps of City Hall shimmered in the late afternoon sun. News vans lined the curb. Reporters pressed against barricades. Protesters, activists, city workers, they all stood shoulder to shoulder, facing the podium that had seen decades of empty promises. But today was different, because today Officer Braxton Cole was not behind a badge, he was behind the truth. Mayor Elijah Chambers stepped up first. He adjusted the MIC, cleared his throat, and addressed the crowd. 3 months ago, we witnessed something painful, ugly, familiar, a uniform misused, power abused. But what followed was unexpected. He looked toward the edge of the stage. Abraham Hall stepped forward slowly, his cane tapping in steady rhythm. The crowd hushed. I stand here not as a victim, he said, but as a witness to change. Not the kind written in policies, but the kind that begins inside a man's soul. He turned to Braxton. This city deserves truth, and so do you. Braxton took the MIC. His voice was calm, clear. No uniform, no shield. I was wrong. 4 words. No excuses. No defense. I spent years believing I was different from the men I arrested. That my badge made me better. That my anger was righteous. He paused. But the truth is I was broken. And I let that brokenness hurt people. He looked directly at the cameras, at the families in the front row, at Simone Rourke standing with her notepad loud. For once, I can't undo what I did, but I can make sure it's never buried again. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small medal, the commendation he'd once received for community excellence. He set it gently on the podium. I don't deserve this anymore, he said, but I do deserve to rebuild what I helped break. Mayor Chambers nodded. Braxton Cole has resigned from the department permanently, but he hasn't walked away from this city. He turned toward the big screen behind them. A logo flashed, the Whole Cole Initiative for Justice, Healing and Reform. Abraham placed a hand on Braxton's shoulder. Together, we'll lead community policing workshops, rehabilitation programs, and advocate for policy review. Not because we have to, but because we should have long ago. The crowd erupted in applause, not forgiveness, not celebration, but acknowledgement, a beginning. After the ceremony, Braxton stood alone beneath the statue of a civil rights leader just outside City Hall. He stared up at the bronze plaque. Dignity doesn't shout, it endures. A soft voice spoke behind him. Your mother would have been proud. He turned. Abraham stood there, smiling. I think she would have liked the name, Braxton said, nodding toward the logo on the stage. Abraham chuckled. I was surprised you didn't put your name first. Braxton shrugged. You came first. They walked together down the steps, cane tapping beside sneakers. In the distance, kids played on the newly reopened courts. Murals painted over old graffiti. One depicted a silhouette of a man kneeling not in defeat, but in honor. Braxton paused. You think people can really change? Abraham didn't answer right away. Instead, he asked, you still waking up angry? Not today. Then I think that's your answer. They disappeared into the city not as a cop and a case, but as a father and a son.